Hello, welcome to the Fair Deal Democrats podcast. I'm Josh Kilroy, longtime political consultant, campaign manager, here talking about issues facing the Democratic Party and the country as a whole. Today, I want to discuss the Democratic primary process for 2028. I apologize if my voice is a little raspy. I have been battling a cold, but I am gradually getting better. So the Democratic primary process, traditionally, prior to 1960, primaries were not a factor at all. It was strictly party leaders. In 1960, Kennedy famously won the West Virginia primary, a couple of others, but that wasn't a way to get popular. That wasn't a way to get the delegates by collecting the votes of average people. It was a way of showing party leaders that Kennedy could connect with particularly Protestant voters. And once they were convinced, they coalesced around his candidacy. In 1968, the primaries were important, very important, in the sense that McCarthy was able to force LBJ out of the race by overperforming in New Hampshire. And then, Robert Kennedy gradually, after LBJ did drop out, Kennedy entered. He ran close and won a number of primaries, sort of squeezed out McCarthy as the progressive alternative and setting up a showdown with Hubert Humphrey. But even then, and of course, he was tragically assassinated. But even had Kennedy lived, he was not likely to get the Democratic nomination because the powers that be within the Democratic Party still controlled the process at its core. And then after they decided to open up the process, McGovern chaired a commission that came up with the system that we know today, which started in '72, basically Iowa, New Hampshire going first, and then each state being arranged on a calendar shortly thereafter. Um, and that, it's changed here and there. In the late, they came up with the idea of Super Tuesday, mostly as a way of concentrating the Southern vote, because Southern voters were seen as more moderate. But and that's the process that we have to today. And now, again, party leaders are meeting now to come up with the schedule for 2000. The criteria that they're using is misguided. And I want to say this podcast is a response and an appreciation of a Substack article written by Matt Robeson, who's a former congressional staffer and campaign manager, uh, has a podcast called Beyond Politics, and he wrote a piece that I found really helpful. Clarified some ideas that I had sort of inchoate in the back of my head, but he really gets to the point. And he identifies two problems with the Democratic nomination process through the primaries. The first is that the wrong states are given priority of place. The sole task of the primary process is to select a nominee who can win in November. And as we all know, there are a limited number of states that affect the outcome. And we can almost name all of them off the top of our heads: Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Uh, did I mention Georgia? I think I did. But, it's a limited number of states. And so Robeson's ideas, they should go first. And you can set up a ranking based just on how close the election was in the previous cycle. So, whether the Democrat lost by half a percentage point or won, that state should go before a state where we won by 10 or 15 points. And so you could just go through and rank them based on the numbers and come up with a reasonably clear schedule. So I think that's a wonderful idea. It gets the candidates talking, in January and February, and really even the year before, to the voters who are going to have the ultimate decision in November. And I think that's an enormous advantage. So, and I don't have the ranking from 2024 right in front of me, but, if just say I'm in Wisconsin right now, so let's just say Wisconsin went first. And, you could maybe, and then you would just move down the line. My suggestion, Wisconsin, and then you could sort of cluster after the first few weeks of one or two states at a time. Then you can open the process up to the Super Tuesdays and stuff to really finalize the nomination by early March, late March at the latest. We don't want a repeat of 2008 where the primary fight went on, even though Obama sort of won it in March. There was that awful 6 week stretch where, we had to wait for, I think it was Texas or something. And then Hillary won that, and it just prolonged a battle that was frankly already over. So the one amendment I would have to sort of Matt's first idea is that if you have states, so say Wisconsin was the closest state, and again, I don't have the numbers in front of me, and Michigan was maybe fourth or fifth, because they're together, maybe cluster them and have the first scheduled primaries, have two states on the ballot. Maybe do that for several weeks in a row. Arizona, Nevada would be maybe another collection. Georgia and North Carolina are sort of close. That was one of the states I left out. But Georgia and North Carolina, and just move from there. And that would give the right voters the biggest say. The second problem with the Democratic primary process, the way it is currently set up, is that it gives the states that have the most delegates at the convention are the states that are the bluest, the Massachusetts, the New Yorks, the Californias. Those are the states that should have the least, or less than they have. I mean, they represent tens of millions of people, so they deserve fair representation. But again, in favor of the Wisconsins, Michigans, Pennsylvanias, etc. Of course, that is unlikely to be a fact deciding the nomination at a convention. It's long over by then, but it would reflect in the actual process, giving an early delegate lead to a candidate who wins in Wisconsin as opposed to somebody who wins in Massachusetts. It would at least prioritize the right set of voters. I think these two ideas are marvelous, and with, like I said, maybe some slight alteration to allow for geographic coupling, I think that's absolutely how we should proceed to set up our Democratic primary process. Robeson notes some possible objections. Namely, does this ignore the traditional backbone of the Democratic Party, labor, African Americans, maybe Latinos. And his answer, and I agree completely, is that no. If you look at the states that I just mentioned, Georgia, North Carolina, you know, have heavy African American representation, and certainly even Pennsylvania with Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and Michigan with Detroit, and Wisconsin with Milwaukee, have uh, representation of African Americans. They have representation of strong labor unions. Michigan has a large Arab community that we need to continue to do outreach to. So it allows the backbone of the party to be part of the key moments of the campaign. Another possible objection is that, it ignores tradition. But, look, we have slowly been moving the last couple of cycles away from this fetish around Iowa and New Hampshire, two great states. I would say they served their function well when it was, when they were served as the platforms for retail politicking to sort of sort the candidates. But that's just, the stakes are too high to continue to give them an outsized voice, particularly since Iowa is now very red and New Hampshire leans heavily blue. I mean, New Hampshire is somewhat of a battleground state, but going to Iowa doesn't make any sense. And then the third objection that Robeson uh, posits is that it favors moderates over progressives. He says he doesn't think that's the case, just because the Democratic base would still be voting in these states. But here I disagree with him. I do think this process favors more moderate Democrats over more progressive Democrats. But again, the mission of the Fairfield Democrats is to promote a vibrant center in the Democratic Party. So, from my point of view, this favoring of moderates over progressives is a feature, not a bug. So we disagree there. But overall, I just think I was very energized when I read his Substack essay, and I wanted to amplify his ideas and celebrate them and advocate for them. Let's think about November 1st. Like, how can we win? That's the prize, winning in November. And let's start talking earlier to the voters who have that ultimate decision. That's my 2 cents. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you again soon.